And
Yes.
just, I was all convinced. And now San Antonio, I'm looking at this Clipper series, and it looks a lot more even than I had thought it would be. So I'm a little worried about them. They won't have home court advantage at any point throughout the playoffs. It probably makes a difference. So I think I was on Danny's show last week, and we talked about that. And and here we are, first round, and I'm like, wow, this all looks very different now. So I might have to get on the Golden State Cleveland bandwagon and tell you I'd go 75% in that could happen.
You heard it here first. Roz, you are the absolute best. And I'm going to say, when it's East Coast, West Coast finals, got to definitely have you come back, because we're going to definitely do a breakdown. But I want to say, Rosalyn Ross, you deserve this. Roz, tell us best ways to get in contact with you, Roz.
Sure. Best way is through Twitter, actually, which, again, shout out to the hubby for putting me on there. But R_Trinity. I follow back, and I like to get in sports conversations. You can reach me there. And, Ted, as always, I love chatting it up with you, and I definitely look forward to coming back on and talking some NBA with you in a couple of weeks, week and a half or so.
Definitely. But the best thing about it is, Roz, we didn't discuss NBA for the first 20 minutes. That's how awesome you are.
Oh, thank you.
So you make sure you tell EJ and G Stelio, back up. Thank you so much, Roz.
Will do. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. And that was Rosalyn Ross, the lovely Rosalyn Ross. I got to tell you, media mogul. From acting to online media to you name it, to radio. Really wonderful person, wonderful guest. Chat with her on all the time via Twitter, R_Trinity. But we're going to switch gears really quick. We have a next guest lined up. Dr. Erica Kosal. I believe she's in the North Carolina area, but we're going to talk about stress and obesity is partners in disease. She's an author, you name it. She's done it all. Dr. Biology, founder of Bounce to Resilience, a blogger of Traveling Troubled Times, international speaker, author of Miracle for Daddies, a family's inspiration fight against the modern medical Goliath. And she's all over national TV. So really excited. Dr. Erica, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Hey, so glad you were able to join us. So there's so much on your portfolio. I really don't know where to start. But I guess we'll just focus on that one chronic family stress point, whether it's maternal poor health. I really want you to talk about your experiences or elaborate how stress can cause a multitude of problems within the family and adolescence.
Sure. Well, let's see. My story started about 7 years ago when my husband got very ill. And at the time, we had a young son, and I got pregnant with our second child. So, we were sort of a young family, and my husband, Jim, was very healthy up until that point. And the sort of synopsis was that his health continued to decline, and it was obviously taking a toll on us financially, emotionally. We weren't exactly sure what was going on. And ultimately, again, he continued to decline in health. He had to take off from his job to try to focus on his health, which, he had ups and downs throughout the years. And unfortunately, he didn't make it, so he lost his battle and died in June. Yeah. So and all that while, we had the stress of the health, the stress on the marriage because of all of that uncertainty. We had financial strains because illness can be just so draining from a medical debt point of view, he started to feel like he was being discriminated against at work because he couldn't do the things that he normally could do. And so we really got it on all angles. And then because his health was declining so much, I became the primary caregiver, and I was trying to work full time, and we had the babies and the kids, and so
right.
there was just a lot of balls to juggle.
Oh my goodness! I like I said, I don't know where to start. I'm going to ask you a few questions. Tell me, why can stress within the family be so disruptive?
Well, I think, when you look at the emotional benefits, right, of having a significant other, study after study, especially for men, they live longer when they're married. There's, just the bond that comes from being in a situation, whether we're talking about spouse or significant others or children and parents. And, the sort of fabric of our essence as a society really comes from having that reinforcement, that love, that place where you can be yourself and still be comfortable. And so when you introduce stress into that mix, suddenly your safe place and your safe relationships no longer are, and it introduces this chronic sort of low-grade stress. And that's the real problem, right? So stress in and of itself doesn't necessarily have to be bad. There are some benefits from stress that, alerts your body that there's something wrong so that you can deal with it. But if you have that low-level chronic stress that keeps on and keeps on and keeps on, that's when it interferes with your nervous system, your immune system, your hormones, and it can cause problems such as killing brain cells, increased obesity, and a decreased immune system in general.
So adolescent obesity is a national public health concern, and unchecked places young people on a trajectory for a variety of health issues as they grow older. I mean,
right?
That
it's this epidemic, right? We keep hearing more and more about it. Mm-hmm.
I mean, totally, and Dr. Erica, I gotta say, and so I have a 13-year-old daughter and a soon-to-be 8-year-old son, and my son likes to have a lot of screen time. And
mine
I've
does
noticed,
too. Mine's 8.
yeah. So I've noticed, so he's picking up the Xbox and he's grabbing the chips and he wants to munch and just sit there, and I'm, there's just certain times I kind of just shut it down. I really do.
And the thing that you're sort of relaying through that story is, again, that the connection between the people in the family is being lost. And,
yes.
Again, we heard, and there's all kinds of evidence that really if you just sit down to eat dinner together, that helps with emotional connection, and you actually don't gain as much weight if you're interacting and talking with each other. So, again, there's some at least plausible evidence out there that this screen time and all of the seclusion, texting, I imagine your 13-year-old is probably doing that a lot.
Oh my goodness.
And just kind of staying by themselves, and you're missing out on that interaction.
Totally. I got to tell you, Dr. Erica, I can't tell you how many times my daughter is sitting there with the screen so close to her face and I guess chatting with her friends either on FaceTime or texting back and forth with her. It just drives me crazy. Yeah. And I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and, I see it. I teach college. I teach biology at the college level, and I see it with my students, too. It's like this addiction. And, again, it's supposed to connect you with more people, but it really has the opposite effect, right? And, again, as more and more studies come out, we're seeing evidence of that, and this idea of kind of being alone, even though you're among all these people and all these friends, supposedly, that you're kind of isolating yourself, and that's when you can start to feel depressed and start to feel out of control, and there's that link between depression and obesity also. And actually, I'm sorry. Well, I was just going to say something about control, which is an interesting thing, and I think related to what we're talking about. There's this great study that was done with rats where they would shock the rats, and of course this was decades ago when they did these kinds of things, but they would shock the rats, and then they would either allow the rats to escape or they would not allow the rats to escape. And for the rats that weren't allowed to escape, and they were all given cancer cells, so that was the key. The rats that weren't allowed to escape, only 20% of them lived, and their T cells were really down. For the rats that could learn to escape and were allowed to escape, even though they had those same cancer cells, 70% of them survived. And so the conclusion the researchers made was this sense of control and the feeling of hopefulness allowed them to fight off the illness, and this idea that optimists have stronger immune systems. And when you put kids in front of, or people in general, in front of all of this technology, it's great on the one hand, but the extreme puts you in the feeling alone and feeling out of control, ironically. And so, again, it has these negative health consequences.
So, Dr. Erica, tell me, what are some ways to live a stress-free life? I personally don't know.
Well,
having an 8-year-old and a 13-year-old, I don't know.
Well, I think the first thing is to acknowledge that stress can be okay. As I said before, for some reason we have been taught that all stress is bad, and that's simply not true. Again, from a survival or ancestor point of view, there's benefit in being stressed and alerting our body to, flee danger and to pay attention to what's happening around us. So I think acknowledging the stress and just saying, allowing yourself to be mad or frustrated with the stress is absolutely okay. And I just know personally from growing up that was not allowed. It was sort of like, oh, stop that, put on a happy face. And again,
right.
there's benefit in embracing the bad feelings without giving those bad feelings power. So in other words, without giving the storyline any sort of press. So there's this great neurological study, neuroscience research, that found it took 90 seconds. If you acknowledge the bad feeling, it will go away after 90 seconds. So give yourself a minute and a half to rant and rave and just, again, I'm so frustrated, and try not to focus on, my spouse is driving me crazy or my boss is such a jerk or whatever it is, to just embrace the bad feeling. And then I think another component to the stress-free living idea is to find something positive, even if it's extremely small, that could be a little lifeline for you. So, when Jim was so sick and, it just really, we didn't know what was happening day to day, there was still always something, right? It was, my children gave me this big smile and hug, or my neighbor came over and dropped off some food, or, I had a good day at work, just something, and to verbalize it and or to write it down. So the educational research just shows that the different types of modalities that you do, so not just thinking about it, but actually doing at least 2 or 3 different things reinforces it in your brain, and then your brain chemicals start firing in a positive way, and it keeps you, again, focused on the important things rather than the stressful things.
I know we're running short on time, and I want to be cognizant, and I'm really appreciative that you were able to take some time out of your schedule tonight. The one question I do want to ask you is, you had to deal with this loss. Tell me, or really tell us, what were the biggest obstacles in getting through the experience with your husband?
I think, ironically, my first hurdle that I went through was relying on other people, because I just knew everybody else had busy lives, and I knew that everybody else had their own problems, and I just felt bad. And a good friend of mine was the one who kind of knocked some sense into me, and he said, I love Jim too, and you need to tell me something that I could do so that I feel like I'm helping, and it's important to me. And so when I learned to kind of give that over to some people, which is still difficult today, by the way, that was very helpful, but that was definitely a huge hurdle. And then I would say the other obstacle that I faced was to really have confidence and faith that things were going to be okay, to kind of just release that and allow yourself to say, okay, this is temporary. Whatever comes, in a month, I can handle.
Gotcha.